Sir. This is Christy Bridges, and it's 2023. We are talking about mental health all year long, and we are starting with some really cool people. So, today I have executive coach and counselor Monica Smith, and Monica's going to talk to us about mental resilience. So, Monica, I am so glad you joined us today. Thank you. You've actually been pursuing some mental what do you call it? Like self-care this weekend, and I'm so glad you took a time out of your weekend to join us. Thank you.
Yes, my husband and I just got back from Big Cedar Lodge in Branson. So if you've not been there, it is just a retreat. It's amazing. So I we both feel very strongly. 6 days you work your tail off, but if you have a seventh day of rest, you get that recharge. And sometimes we just have to get away. So we did,
Ah,
and it was great.
nice. I love your husband. I met for about this long, and I
Yeah,
already like him. He seems to be such a great partner for you, and
he
that's
is fabulous.
wonderful. So, most of us are, I think, kind of attracted to the word resilience, right? Because
Right,
sometimes, we get knocked down, we try to get up again, and three or four times later,
right.
the song feels old, right? We don't want to keep getting back up. What is mental resilience to you, and why is it important to build it ahead of time?
Yeah, I'm with you. The word resilience has probably drawn me my whole life because I love story. I even use narrative therapy a lot with my clients. The hero in the story, we see that massive resilience, right? And we're all drawn to it. We all want to know, how do we get it and what does that look like? And so for me, I was drawn to understanding um, what allowed some people to have peace while they were pursuing their full potential, and what for others made them just crumble. Right.
Mhm.
So I've been a studier of human behavior my whole life. I think I came out of the womb like paying attention to other people. So I was wanting to know, why do they do what they do and what are they thinking, and so mental resilience has been for me a 10-year study that first started with a deep dive into emotional intelligence, which emotional intelligence, if our viewers are not familiar with what that is, Daniel Goleman came out back in 1995 with this concept of, if we had self-awareness, we could manage ourselves better, and if we had social awareness, we could contribute to our relationships with relationship management. And so that took me into getting to write a program for a university that was, I loved this university that I used to work for, and getting to watch students deep dive into that self discovery. I
Mm.
realized that we're all kind of like, and this is kind of getting, this is a long part to my answer, but
Oh.
we're all like these Coke cans, right? If we're full, we're very hard to crush. But
Mm.
if we're empty, the world crushes us so easily.
I love that.
So, mental resilience for me in my journey is, I've come to realize that the human core has two parts:
Mhm.
the mind and the heart, or the emotions. And we have to have resilience, bolstering both and training in both. Years ago, I used to do half marathons, and Hal Higdon had the best half marathon training plan. And so I went from on the couch to running a half marathon within his allotted, 14 weeks or whatever he said, which was amazing, just following his plan,
Okay.
right? So I created those habits. Well, mental resilience is the same. If you're needing to manage your mind and you're needing to manage your limbic system or your emotion regulation, right? It's the same as creating a plan. You don't just miraculously stumble upon it, right? You pursue it, you do it. So you don't, for me, what I've realized is, I couldn't just wake up one day and go, oh, I am resilient now. And I know I'm resilient because I just, whatever definition I want to come up with. No, I realized people with adversity that create resilience, they have practiced it over and over and
Yeah.
over and over again, right? And the more that we practice, the more that we do our way through adversity and we attach to ourself, fill our own Coke can and know our own strength, right? The more that we do that, the more that we are less impacted by the world around us and more our own best advocate. So, mental resilience has become this great study. And ironically, I didn't name myself that. I always thought, well, I'm an emotional intelligence coach. I help people optimize their peace and potential. I had all these fancy things.
Hmm.
And Pipeline Entrepreneurs hired me to do their about 2 years ago. And I've been doing it ever since. Love this community. Um, Melissa Vincent is their executive director. And she said, could you just come on and every month just give us a talk and give us some bolstering and give some tools to our entrepreneurs? And I was like, sure. She was like, I look at you as a really good mental resilience coach. And I was like, what? Okay. And so it's then caused me to go out and do like Brene Brown. I've gone out and done my own survey monkey and said, how would we define mental resilience? And when all of the definitions started pouring in, I started looking for, okay, where am I seeing a pattern? Where am I seeing similarities? Some words came up. The word ability came up. It was like 83% of the definitions had the word that it was an ability. It was something that you could learn, earn, or do.
Yes. A
And I was
skill
like,
you develop,
it's a
right?
skill you develop. And so it was really interesting because I started thinking, I often look to, so the Bible is one of the most ancient texts that has been proven more than any other text. So I use it like some people might use Stoic philosophy as their base for truth. Well, I look to the scriptures as my base of truth for finding where do we see a pattern. And if you look back in the pattern of people and resilience, we can see that the mind and the heart were addressed over and over again,
Mhm.
right? We see that we've been asked, if you are a follower of Christ, you've been asked to have the mind of Christ,
Yeah.
right? You could have asked for anything. I mean, and it was a noticeable discipline that we would do this. And so I'm like, okay, this is really interesting. And then we look at the limbic system and we see an area of, okay, what is this intangible love concept? Well, it's defined. Like we can see, it can be measured in patience. It can be measured um, in gentleness. It can be measured in self-control. It can be measured in these ways that we interact with one another. So I started kind of doing this comprehensive study of how can I take my years of teaching at the university, where I taught the psychology classes, I taught the emotional intelligence classes, and then my years of being in my own practice with clients doing coaching. How could I take all these things and put them together and offer a comprehensive 20 plus theories, all the books? I'm an avid reader. I wake up and read like 2 to 3 hours every morning in my field
Good for
because I
you.
think that, that's how I stay relevant and that's how I stay the best tool for helping others. And I started thinking, how do we put these together and how do I help people attach to themselves and get that strong attachment, not just I identify as what I do. Identity that is based in our work relationship is not enough,
Ooh, it's
right?
frail. It's
It's
frail.
yeah, and it's external. So at any minute we can have that taken from us.
Hmm.
And so really getting to understand who we are as people, what makes us tick, right? What gives us strength? What gives us courage? What do we rely on? Those underbelly of beliefs that we all have, right?
Yeah.
So I've put together this program, which is getting ready to come out. My husband's been helping with the launch stuff and getting the feedback. So I
Yay.
think we're so close. We're just those last finishing touches. But I put them all together to really create just like how Higdon could get you off the couch and doing a marathon. I'd like to
I'm still
get you,
impressed.
yeah, I'd like to get you to managing your mind, those
Mhm.
thoughts that keep you up at night, those thoughts that we get looped on that make us feel like crap about ourselves,
Mhm.
those thoughts that make us like freeze and procrastinate. I want those to be transformed. I want those to be given tools that you can actually use that work. And then over here with our emotion regulation, to understand what gets us caught in the limbic system and doesn't allow us to get to those logical thoughts. What are some tools that we can have to build a bridge? Because worst case scenario is the trauma. Trauma keeps us trapped often in that limbic system. And so building a bridge has to be done ahead of time. You can't build a bridge when you're in the middle of a complex post traumatic episode.
Right.
That bridge has to be built ahead of
Ahead
time,
of time.
just like an escape plan. They tell you to do your escape plan ahead of time. So that's kind of been obviously my passion, because I can't stop talking about it. And I really dedicated 90% of my professional life to it. So it's been something that I believe, if I can help people attach to themselves and give them tools to manage their heart and mind, I think that I can set people up for success.
I
And
love that.
success to me means peace first,
Hmm.
because you can have all the success in the world, and if you're not a person of peace and at peace, it really matters not.
Right.
Right? But then you have to have a certain amount of desire to have challenge and discomfort, right? To be what you were created to be your
Hmm.
optimal self. So I really like to pair those together and give people something that is more robust and makes all of my crazy avid reading worth my time.
I love it. So you've said a lot, and I want to just kind of rewind
Yeah.
a little bit and unpack a couple of things. Now, one of the things you said gets me excited. And if you are watching this, you should get excited, because if you are watching this, you have been through something, right? I think you can't make it to your teens without having been through something. But get excited, because Romans 5 says, suffering. Let's see, where was it? I just had it. Um, we glory in our sufferings. We know that suffering produces perseverance, perseverance, character, and character, hope. And hope doesn't put us to shame, because God's love has been poured out into our hearts through the Holy Spirit who's been given to us. Okay, that's the important thing, though.
Right.
Suffering doesn't always produce perseverance, character, and hope
Right.
if you're not attached to your creator who made you in a way that can be resilient. God is the one who works everything into good. We have to be hand in hand with him for us to see that good, and for our character to be molded into something that is good and powerful and perseverant and hopeful, right? So that is number one.
Hmm. Hmm.
Um, there are some people who manage to become resilient to a certain extent on their own, and there are other people that just get beaten down more and more in suffering. And at any point in your life, you can reach for the life ring that's being held out to you, what is called life preserver, right?
Yes.
Um, and say, God, I am tired of suffering on my own. I'm tired of trying to be resilient on my own. I'm going to reach for what you're holding out, because you know how to
Yeah.
get me out of this deep water and help me bounce back. So that's one thing that got me excited. If you have been through stuff, get excited, because you actually have the ability, because your creator is right there going, here, let me help you. You have the ability to become so powerful through that. Now, you're going to have to learn some things, and you've mentioned a few things in here. You said
Mhm.
you help people attach to themselves.
Yes.
I'm pretty sure I understand what you mean by that, but I don't know that everybody else does. So I'm going to give an example, and you can tell me if this is kind of where you're going with that.
Hmm.
When I don't know who I am, when I am not sure that who I am is right, I think maybe who I am
Yeah.
is messed up, and I'm ashamed of who I am, then I can tend to attach to other people and expect them to fulfill me somehow, expect them to uh, be who I am not for me, expect them
Yeah.
to show me who I'm supposed to be or validate me somehow. And
Yeah.
that's, ooh, people are fickle and they have to live their own lives. So even if they're good people, they're
Right.
they're not the source for us. So if I
Right.
attach to myself, what does that look like?
So it's interesting because my coaching and counseling philosophy is very rooted in an intersection.
Mhm.
So I look at psychology as one road, and I look at all the data that's been collected over the years, and I look at the Bible, and I look at the way that Christ has asked us to watch, and I look for the intersection point. And
Mm.
Bowlby, in on the psychology side, has some great research about the way that we attach as children, right?
Yeah.
That we attach to our caregiver because we're always looking for security, safety, and a sense of belonging,
Mhm.
right? So then I look at if I couple that with what Christ said, I love, he said so many poignant things at the end of his life. One of the things he said is that he didn't entrust himself to a man because he knew what was in a man,
Mm.
right? So
Yeah.
he went straight to his father to tell him who he was and who he was not,
Yes.
right? We attach to ourselves when we understand that we've all been created. And although we're all some form of a car, right? Our thumbprint shows the uniqueness of our makes and models being vastly different.
Mhm.
And so we look to our creator to tell us what he's created in us. And
Mm.
we don't allow our sense of belonging or our sense of safety and security to be outside of that relationship, or it can be so easily crushed. And
Yes.
so, yeah, so when he really tells us to love ourselves, right, to love others as ourself, it
Mhm.
means there is an understanding, there's an expectation that we've already entered in a relationship with him and we've been taught how to love ourselves, right? So that would
Yes.
make us a conduit. So being a conduit is vastly different than being at the mercy of chasing belonging, security, and safety in anyone and everything around you, right?
Yes. Yes. And, you know, um, when we attach to ourselves and
Yes,
we look to, our parents, right? Our creator and say,
right.
okay, how am I made? What are we doing with this?
Yeah,
What vision do you have here? Because I can only see this far, right? Then
right.
we get a whole new sense of life. I loved your analogy of the Coke can that's full, not being easily crushed, and the Coke can that's empty, um, being able to be crushed and basically blow down the street. My mom and I were at a traffic light, and it was so windy that someone had thrown out one of those long, skinny cans from an energy drink,
Yeah,
and it
yeah,
was racing down the street like it had somewhere to be. It was just like,
yeah,
and I thought, it's so true. If it doesn't have anything inside of it, then it can be just tossed
yeah,
anywhere, and that's dangerous for a Coke can, right?
yes,
So we have
right.
to,
And the first
number
time
one,
I heard
yeah.
that from Hal Elrod. He wrote Miracle Morning, and he
Mhm,
gave that analogy. And again, he was on the psychology side, and I was looking for where's that intersection, because
mhm,
I'm always looking for where that intersection is. And I realized who are the people that are easily crushed, who are
yeah,
easily swayed, who are easily, um, they're people who do not know who they are, right?
right.
That don't have that strong sense of identity. And so, yeah, so, but most of my stuff, I am a collection, again, conduit, psychology and scripture
Mhm.
and sharing those. So I do like to give credit where I've read something, but that analogy spoke to me as well.
That's
Totally.
wonderful. And now we can make up ideas about who we are.
Yes.
And a lot of those, without us recognizing it, can be based in trauma
Right.
or, um, childhood failures, adulthood failures. They can be
Right.
based in bad relationships. There's so much input. They can be based in media. There's so much
Right.
input that forms our idea of who we want to be or who we are and our
Right.
value. That it helps, like you were saying, go to that juxtaposition, right? What did Jesus demonstrate about this? And you
Right.
could look at who he was and how he demonstrated very carefully. I mean, he shared the story of the temptations with his disciples. And when I look at the story of him being tempted, it's as though the devil was coming to him with, you can be this kind of hero, you could be that kind
Right.
of hero, or you could be this kind of hero.
Right.
And because each of the things the devil said to do could ultimately have been used to attract the
Right.
audience, right? And Jesus is like, I'm doing things the way God has me to do them. And he was very
Right.
careful throughout his life to, heal people, but not necessarily take them along with him.
Yeah.
Say, go back to your town and do, your thing. And so it's kind of neat when we attach to ourselves, we don't necessarily let everybody else attach to us, right? And
Right.
we don't
Right.
necessarily just make it up. We look for what God has to say about us.
Right. Also understanding that attaching to yourself can be very much a Mount Everest climb. I mean,
Mm,
it is not just an easy love yourself or take a bubble bath or take a walk or take a trip. Like those things are great, and I'm an advocate of those types of self-care.
mhm,
But self-love is a hard deep dive into asking questions that a lot of us don't want to ask, right? When you're going to the original blueprint of hardcore beliefs, of
mhm,
what you believe about the way the world works and how you shaped those beliefs as a young person, we're living in that subconscious understanding of what we believe. And some of those, we don't ever want to revisit again,
mhm.
right? We don't
That's
want to
true.
challenge that blueprint. So we keep doing the blueprint over and over again. It may be different styles. We may have this house is country French and this one is modern and this one is old English. But the original blueprint of the three rooms and two bathrooms is the same until we sit down with the architect and say, is this the right blueprint? Because often, I mean, you don't have to be in this world very long to realize that it's a harsh place.
Mhm.
And and the blueprints that we create when we're younger often do need to be challenged. They often
Yes.
aren't exactly architecturally sound, and they don't give us the kind of life that we're wanting to build. We got to go back and say, tear out this foundation and let's put down some rebar and let's put down something that's concrete. And that's where one of the tools that I use with my clients is an evidence notebook. I have them write evidence in their journal of not what's said, but evidence of what they know to be true.
Mm.
And so, we look at the scriptures, that would be those memorials where they would memorialize the things that God had done in their lives. So we look for evidence of where is truth in our life and what needs to be challenged that we've been saying that it's really not even true.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, for centuries, people went with outdoor
Right.
bathrooms when they built their houses. Aren't we glad someone sat down with an architect? You
Yes.
know? I
Amen.
mean, wow, things got to change
Amen.
sometimes. Well, and you mentioned previously that sometimes, we have to plan. Can't remember why you said it, but you said something about planning our escape route. I think for
Yes.
just, in building our resiliency,
Yes.
building the
Mhm.
foundation. And when we've been through challenges we couldn't win, when,
Right.
especially when we're young and we've been through trauma, or when we've been in a relationship where there's trauma, or, in the
Yeah.
military, wherever that is, there is research to show that we can't always see an escape route when we're faced with
Right.
similar trauma. If we
Right.
feel trapped, we may not be, right?
Right.
There may be a door right there, but we can't see it because of the prior trauma. And so
Right.
knowing ahead of time, where am I headed? Um, and building, an awareness of my strengths, building an
Yeah.
awareness of the things that might block my view
Right.
is so important.
Right. And what am I going to do What am I going to do in the moment? What are my next steps that I don't have to think about? I just know to do them like I would ride a bike, right?
Yes.
You know to do it because you've done it so many times. So that for me was
Practice.
born out of complex post traumatic. So I was diagnosed with complex post traumatic. And
Mm-hmm.
so it is a condition that I've lived with that has been incredibly debilitating
Mm.
because you get caught in your limbic system and you can't get out, right? And so you have to come up with something ahead of time. And let me explain just a little bit about how
Caught
this
in your
works.
limbic system.
Yes, yes, which I'm going to
Yes.
explain kind of how this works because you have to understand the best design, and
Mm-hmm.
then you can see where it breaks down. So the
Gotcha.
best design is when we experience something like us having this conversation right now, it's coming in through the back of our head. It's going up through the limbic system so we feel before we're thinking.
Ugh, isn't that
Then
the
it
truth?
comes to the prefrontal cortex, and then we make a judgment about those feelings, and we define those feelings, and we go back and we put like a package around them and say, "You feel this way because blank," and then we file it away. And we're doing this all day long, all the time,
Mm-hmm.
right? Well, when you have complex post traumatic and you've been triggered, you don't get to come up here and make a judgment with logic.
You're right.
Instead, it is a and you're feeling, that all those feelings, and you feel threatened, you feel afraid, you feel
Run, rabbit, run,
chaotic,
right?
right? You feel all
Yes.
those feelings. So you have to have a plan ahead of time of when I feel that trigger, when I know, because you get used to where that's the trigger. What is the game plan? For
Mm.
me, game plan is I write a journal. I make a 48-hour rule. I do not speak to whoever has triggered or whatever circumstance. I do not address I don't address it while I know I'm still in my limbic system.
You don't send 400 texts?
No, no, don't do that. Yeah, no, I
I
made that
once did that,
mistake.
and then
I'm
somebody did it to me.
sorry.
I was
It
like,
happens.
oh.
Yes. Yes, and we all have those. I mean, we're imperfect people with imperfect lives, and we do the best we can with the tools that we have. And
Yeah.
so that's why having that tool in your repertoire to be able to pull out and to go, okay, when I get triggered and when I start to just cascade into despair or into anxiety, this is the plan. And then having that plan, a lot of people use visualization. I also have a place that I go
Hmm.
and where I can get sensations of the here and now. So
Right.
all those things are so important, right? Because then you can make that judgment call.
And sometimes people don't recognize
Right.
because maybe I don't have panic attacks because I'm in the kitchen stuffing something into my face, or
Yes.
maybe I don't feel overwhelmed with something because I'm out back smoking a cigarette. Sometimes we have these things that we've trained ourselves to
Right.
calm ourselves down with that aren't helpful, right?
Right.
And we actually have to slow the process.
Right.
And if I'm getting up from my chair or if I'm headed towards the kitchen, if I'm in motion,
Yeah.
then I need to stop for a second and say, okay, what is the feeling here? What
Right.
what's the trajectory for this? And is this something that I need to disrupt? And
Yeah.
that's
There's.
something that I'm currently learning to do is to challenge myself when I start to shift gears and go, wait, what am I feeling? Is this something that needs to be disrupted? Otherwise I end up in the same little, like one of those toy trains that just
Yeah.
goes around that same track.
Yes, and there's a great tool which you are providing for your viewers that with the tool that we've given away. It's a great journal tool where you say, I feel blank
Hmm.
because blank. And
Yes.
you're attaching, I'm feeling because that's how we integrate things that traumatize us. And we use the word trauma, but I want to give everybody a definition.
Hmm.
Um, Trauma is any experience that we have that we feel like we can't escape. An
Yes.
inescapable experience or thought is considered traumatic because it's not filed away properly, right?
Good
So
reason.
how we file things away properly is to understand why I feel blank because because gets us to, and if you're new to this of feeling things for the first time, because lots of us have been in numbville. So if you're new to feeling feelings, first of all, know that only, according to Bradbury and the emotional intelligence researchers, only 36% of the population actually feel emotions as they're happening. So many of us can't.
Wow,
We struggle to name them.
36%.
That's it. That's it.
And that's,
So
oh, thank you
it's a
for that.
skill. It is a skill. And that's why you have to stop and say, and embarrassing, I'm going to tell y'all, I have sat in my kitchen with a bag of chocolate chips and I've said, I feel what? What am I feeling? You know, and I'm like, okay, I feel anxious. Well, why am I anxious? Well, because I'm on deadline for a project. Okay,
Mm,
sister, that makes sense. And then
yep.
I employ, like, I defined my love is I am patient with myself in those moments. I am gentle with myself in those moments. You know, I am kind. So the first thing I say is I say, oh, sis. And I say that inside my head. I say, oh, sis, you and I both know you want to down this bag of chocolate chips. And I get it. You're going to feel better for about 5 seconds. But we need to ask why. Like, what's the because here? It's like, okay, I
Mm-hmm.
feel anxious because I'm on deadline and I'm scared. I'm scared I'm going to fail. Okay, now we know what you're feeling, right? And then I can have that moment where I'm able to be very gracious with myself and say, okay, we're going to do a handful of chocolate chips just to reward you and that you came to an understanding, but we're not going to do the whole bag. And now we're going to put those away and we're going to get back on task. And so it's so nice to have that friendship. And that's part of that attachment is I've learned to befriend myself in a kind manner. And then that way, whenever I'm stuck in a feeling that I'm like, I don't like this, I don't want to feel this way, this just sucks, then I'm able to, instead of looking for pain relief, because emotional pain is just like physical pain to the body. The body doesn't know the difference. So
Mm-hmm.
we don't judge people who use an aspirin for a headache. So
Nope.
why do we judge people that go to food, alcohol, and all sorts of things when they have emotional pain that they're going to figure out how to make it better, right? We just need to teach them that there's a natural way, there's a natural, healthier way to get the same better results because in the long run you're going to not have the shame and blame
Right.
and to be able to actually be that best friend to yourself where you're not alone. You've got a sense of belonging in that moment, a sense of safety and a sense of security, and it's all right there within you.
I love just being a fly on the wall in that moment with you. So what you're
Yeah.
saying is you don't beat yourself up for being in the kitchen.
Nope.
You just and you use a couple of tricks. Okay, so the first devotion of the year, we talked about identifying our feelings and
Yes.
sitting in them instead of trying to move directly onto, an action or our default feeling. So that
Yeah.
was perfect. And but then you talked about using your name, which is actually another thing that we've talked about this year. Oh sis, which is basically the same kind of thing. It stops you. It's like a hypnotist snapping their
Yes.
fingers, and all of a sudden you're awake in the moment. But you do it in such a kind, compassionate way. Oh, and here's
Yeah.
a little reward for being honest.
Right. Right.
I love that. That's my favorite thing ever, I think. I'm
Yeah.
totally gonna be doing that. And I'm
It
gonna look like you when I do it. I'm just gonna be like, "Oh, sis."
it no, it helps. I know it sounds so crazy. It helps because
Yes.
I was the worst. I've had a lot of emotional abuse throughout my life, and I
Mhm.
continued that same abuse cycle in my head, which was the tension would build, then I
Yep.
would say something hateful and mean to myself, then I would try to reconcile with myself, and
Mm,
then I'd have some moments of peace. That's the abuse cycle right there.
yep.
I kept doing that to myself, right? And I realized I was like, I was born with myself and I'm going to die with myself. And if I am going to be a follower of Christ and I'm going to say that I'm going to love others like myself, it means I'm going to emotionally abuse the heck out of everybody because that's what I do in here.
Right. And we
And so I
can't
was
do
like,
that.
that's not going to work. That's not sustainable. And so then I decided, okay, I've got to figure this out. And that's when I learned first I had to define what love was. I have to have things measured, like because I like to perform and I like to know if I got all five of my gold stars. So
Mm.
I had to tell myself, how are you going to measure you loving yourself well? And I
Mm.
decided how I was going to measure that was by my kindness, my patience, my gentleness, and my self control with myself. And
Mhm.
then that's how I started to go, okay. And then the sis is, I realized over time, it became endearing because I realized that
It is.
I wanted a sister like me that could be this way, that could just say,
Yes.
oh, sis, come on now. You got this. This isn't outside
I
of your
love that.
realm of expertise. You got this.
Yeah. And we
And
don't shut down in the moment. We don't let anxiety freeze us in place and give us something to be even sadder about in the future, right?
right,
Instead, we're just compassionate and
right.
hopeful. Hey, I know you can do this. That's beautiful.
And not being afraid to fail. When you fail yourself, I
Yeah.
love Brene Brown talks about the difference between guilt and blame or
Mm.
shame, guilt and shame.
Guilt and shame. Yeah.
When you come across where you failed yourself, it is a, oh, sis, we failed.
Yeah.
We failed. We did the wrong thing, right? I'm not perfect. We did the wrong thing.
It's
And
okay to be honest. It's
right,
okay to admit things.
right,
Um, and it's not, gosh, if we've been in situations before where doing wrong meant we were humiliated,
right,
right? Or punished,
right.
we have to kick that voice out because we don't
Yeah,
choose to live with that person who did that anymore.
right, right,
And with ourselves, we can just be honest and say, okay,
right.
well, yeah, but you know what? I'm still breathing. I'm going to move
Yeah.
forward and do better.
Yeah, and know that we're all, I mean, one of my favorite verses is the Romans 3. We all fall short of the glory of God.
Yep.
We all are in this boat.
That's right.
Right? It's not like when I mess up, I'm just an anomaly. Oh my gosh, everybody else is perfect and then I had this moment. Like, so
Right.
there's this friendship with ourself that we can say, this is what I'm sorry is all about. Is you
Yeah.
say to yourself, I'm sorry I disappointed you. I am so sorry.
Mhm.
I didn't want that for you, but I
Yep.
did that. And like we have to let that go and we have to be able to forgive ourselves and we have to be able to say, um, we're not perfect. We're
No.
not perfect.
And we have to rebuild our trust in ourselves.
Oh, isn't that the truth?
We have to rebuild our trust in ourselves. And guess what? That takes is the P word, practice. The same
Yes.
thing that got you to run a marathon, the same thing that makes us resilient,
Right.
is practice. So practicing being trustworthy with ourselves, practicing trusting ourselves enough to face what's
Right.
going on, and practicing being kind to ourselves so that we can, you know, we're worthy of that trust, that inner
Right.
trust. I love that.
Yeah. Which is so the journal
Mhm.
prompting that we're giving out.
Yes.
It starts with every morning. I practice this myself. I write what things I'm comfortable with right now in my life and what things
Mhm.
I'm uncomfortable in my life. This keeps me out of the positivity, the toxic positivity.
Mm.
Gratitude journals are amazing. We've got lots of evidence to
Oh, I
support
love
them.
gratitude journals. Yeah.
But some of us, me, i.e., me, we cling on to, I'm fine, everything's great, and just want to write all the good stuff. And we don't want to sit down and take a real inventory of what the day has for us, right? So then we get sideswipe later because we're
Mm.
like, oh my gosh, I didn't even see this coming. And it's like, well, if you would have had a more comprehensive morning journal, like you probably would have seen it. And so
Ah.
it's interesting where I've started to write, where am I comfortable? And I thank the Lord for those things. I appreciate those things. I value those things. And then I look for the areas in my life that I'm uncomfortable. I circle the ones that I can actually strategize to start pulling myself out of the trench. And then the ones that I can't, I say a prayer and I ask the Lord to help me accept the thorns in the flesh that are in my life. Help me
Mm,
accept it. Help me not to spend all my time and energy focused on those, because
mhm.
I've got these other beautiful areas where I can be focusing on what He's given me and what is bringing me peace and joy and all those things in my life that I'm grateful to be alive. So I look at that comprehensive view, and then I have a more accurate view of how I'm going to execute my day and what my day should feel like. Because I'm not going to stay in glad all day long,
Mm-mm.
right? We have a myriad of emotions. We're going to experience, what was it, 15,000 plus emotions throughout the day. And we're just, if we can more fluidly experience them instead of getting stuck in them, then we
Right?
can have this wave of comfortable, uncomfortable, comfortable, uncomfortable. And then we're not so blindsided when something goes wrong, right? Because that's what we want. What we want is to go through life with an understanding that suffering is part of life, joy is part of life, right? And
Mhm.
we're not going to have all of that either way. If you're stuck in the suffering right now, just wait. Joy is coming. If
Yeah.
you're in the joy right now, just wait. Everyone will be salted by fire. Like we have this our acceptance of that is where we really can be resilient, is because we recognize that we're not always going to be up and we're not always going to be down. But
Right.
we what we are going to be is we are always going to be with ourselves. So
Mm.
let's embrace ourselves through the journey and accept
Yes.
ourselves when we're up and accept ourselves when we're down.
So we're not always going to be up. We're not always going to be down. We are always going to be with ourselves. And so we may
Yes.
as well be a good companion. I like that. Some people think that they're only realistic if they always see the downside of things. And some people only ever want to, stay positive because they know they'll get through it. That's me, right? I know I'm going to get through this, so everything's great,
Right.
but if we pause and we accept all of those and we have an opportunity to strategize. I like that a lot. To strategize and to also
Yeah.
just get comfortable with the fact that we're going to feel different ways and there's not one of them that isn't perfectly okay.
Right. And we're all at different places in this fluid, so
Yes.
this loving kindness toward our co-journers, that hey, we're all going through this journey, right? And somewhat your friend may be up now and you may be in your trench, and
Mhm.
vice versa, and we can hope and look at them and be excited for them and get joy that we see, and then they can have compassion and understanding of us being in a trench.
I like that. Um, so I'm just going to go ahead and keep this going for a little bit longer because this has been so full of really good nuggets, and I just want
Oh,
to keep
thanks.
like breaking them down somewhat. You mentioned a little bit ago about when you feel something before you think about it, right?
Right.
There's this feeling
Mm-hmm.
coming from whatever you're enduring at the moment, and you also mentioned those times where we just freeze, where
Right.
we just find ourselves not doing the things we thought we would do. We find ourselves
Right.
not saying the things that later we think, man, if I had just said this, right? We find ourselves maybe just closing up and either running away or hiding or responding, or I guess reacting instead of responding, right? um
Right.
when we have those moments and it just feels too hard to even listen to ourselves, too hard
Right.
to stop right then because everything feels too hard right then.
Right.
What's a good way to soften that and
Yeah.
start to move again?
So Dr. Ellis has a great strategy, and it's called the ABCDE tool in its
Okay.
entirety. So A is the activating event, right? Something
Mhm.
happens. B is the belief that we have. C is the consequence that happens from that belief. So let me kind of give you an analogy. So let's say I'm dating a guy. I'm married, so this is not me, everybody. But so let's say I'm dating a guy,
Mhm.
and the activating event is that he's gone hiking with all of his friends in Colorado, and he lives across the street. And so he's gone with his friends, and I see his car is gone. And I wake up that next morning, and he's not supposed to be home till maybe 3 days from now, but I see his car in the driveway.
Mhm.
And I realize he's not answered any of my texts. His car is in the driveway, and, I've had this activating event. Something has happened. So my limbic system goes crazy and just like all the feels, all the stressors, and it's like, oh my gosh, the beliefs come out.
Mhm.
He's going to break up with me. He's not wanting to call. He's wanting to do it in person. He's come home early because he is going to break up with me. I just know it because so and so did this in high school. And,
Right.
there's just all these feelings. Well, then the consequence is my reaction to that. Let's say I march over to his house, I ring his doorbell, and I decide that I'm going to be the one to end it right here and now. And I go, you didn't answer my text. Your car's in the driveway. I have completely lost trust and we are finished. Right? Like I overreact. I am overreacting because I have this activated, or I have this
Yes,
belief
and
that
that's
something
so
bad's going to
something those
happen.
girls in the books do, and you're just like, "Oh, slow down."
Right.
Yes.
So that's the consequence, right? Is that I have now assaulted verbally my boyfriend,
Mhm.
and there is a chance that he could break up with me over my reaction,
Yep.
right? Or maybe what I was thinking is true. We don't know yet. Now let's rewind the tape. He doesn't answer my text. I see his car. I start to have all those feels, and I then dispute. The D is dispute. I start to
Mhm.
dispute that belief. And I go, you know what? You've been hurt before. You know that you have this fight that comes up in you. That when you
Mhm.
feel like rejection is imminent or we're anywhere near it, we all of a sudden become fighting Monica. And so then you dispute it and you say, I am not going to react and respond the way that I normally would out of that belief.
Mhm.
Instead, I walk over there and I say, hey, is everything okay? I didn't think you were going to get home till Tuesday. And then he has the opportunity to say, whatever.
My car broke down, my phone fell in the
Eh,
toilet.
Yeah,
Golly.
who knows what the
Yeah.
story is? Who
Right?
knows? Right?
Mhm.
But we know that when we react out of that limbic system, and when we're not disputing, especially when we can see a pattern of behaviors where we've
Right?
overreacted, right? Or we froze.
Mhm.
Or my favorite is, a lot of people don't talk about this one, but I was a fawner. So my thing would have been to fawn, meaning I would have been like, oh my gosh, I just love you so much. And like, I'm just hoping everything is okay because I just love you and I want to make sure that we're good. And, you know, yeah.
My husband's like, "Don't smother me."
Yes,
Yes.
I would have, la, 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 just like
Uh-huh.
talk about it, and then later been like, oh my gosh, I'm a shameful human. So,
Right. I'm so embarrassed.
but if
Yeah.
you dispute it, then you get to show up as yourself. You get to have a reasonable conversation, and you're not reacting out of that limbic loop. Because we
Right.
talk a lot about mind loops, where you get stuck on saying something over again. Like, I'm always a procrastinator. I hate that about myself. I'm always, that's a mind loop. The
Yes.
emotion loop is the something bad's gonna happen, something bad's gonna happen, something bad's gonna happen. This is not
Right?
good, not good. Right? And it gets us out of that.
Yes. And I've known people who would have probably, instead of going over there, would have spent the whole weekend not going to their job because they're too uptight and
Yes.
concerned and, looking through the window and then, shutting the shade, right? So there's those people. And then there's
Yeah.
those of us who like to make excuses for people and go, oh, I'm sure it's perfectly fine. That hot girl that just pulled up next to his car is, so there's like,
Yes.
so many illogical
Right.
responses we can have, reactions, I guess,
Right.
to that limbic. And
Right.
if we instead have that compassionate sister to sister conversation or brother to brother, if you're a guy, that
Yeah.
compassionate, friendly conversation with yourself that says, let's strategize this. Not in a crazy, I'm, gonna go,
Right.
do something nuts, but what would actually be logical if we're keeping
Right.
an open mind and waiting to see what happens?
Right. And
I like
again, we
that.
that Coke can, when our Coke can's full
Yeah.
and we're self-assured,
Yeah.
we're not afraid that something we can't handle is going to happen.
Yes. Worst case scenario, I lose this person, but guess
Right.
what? Uh, people get lost and I will still be with me,
Yes.
and God still has a purpose and something good will be done in my life. I'll be
Right.
okay. Boy, I tell you, knowing how skilled at my age, I have seen how skilled God is at taking crummy situations and turning
Yeah.
good out of them. I've seen how skilled he is, and I'm just like, you know what? Whatever happens, it's gonna end up really good. And one of these
Yeah.
days, I'm gonna be done with this body and this particular plane anyway. But in the meantime, of course, I want good things. I want my house to, not
Yeah.
burn down when I leave the house, right? I want
Right.
good things to happen, but no, I can take pretty much anything because I know
Right.
who I'm working with.
Right. And I look to King David. King
Mm,
David poured out his limbic system, right? He was
yes.
like, these people hate me and I hate them and everybody's going to kill me and why don't you strike them down and this is awful and nobody likes me and da 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 da. And then he always follows it. If you read the Psalms,
Mhm.
but I know
Yes.
you are God, but I
Yes.
know. And that's where we get into that evidence notebook, right? We have all these feelings, but it's the evidence, but I know. That gets us to that. Like for me,
And
when
being able
yeah,
to recognize and sort, get all those feelings out there and then sort through them. That's so important. We
right.
do that, we're automatically going to get more comfortable with
Right.
feeling.
Right. We were not expected to be all mind
Mhm.
or all heart. We were expected to be this beautiful combination of our mind and our heart, our soul.
Yeah.
That is us. That is the core of who we are.
Mhm.
And so I think it's so important that as much as we manage our feelings and emotion regulation, we manage our mind. One is as important as the other. They're
Yes.
both equally as important.
Yes. I really appreciate too that you fill your mind with good stuff.
Yeah.
And that's something that I want to encourage. A lot of creative people visit this page,
Oh,
and I
fun.
appreciate you so much. And like me, maybe you spend more of your energy imagining things and doing things than taking in things. And I've made a change in that in my own life over the last year. I took that break and started reading more, listening more, taking in good stuff that taught me, that healed me, that nurtured me, and some that just entertained me and gave me free brain space. And I will say, I'm going to keep doing that. I've already made a vow to myself. I'm not going to quit
I
doing
love
that.
that.
And I would just encourage you to do the same if you're listening. Take in good, healthy stuff because that right there gives us a buffer
Yeah.
between um, other people that might disrupt or other situations that might disrupt and put us into a turmoil. When we are continuously feeding our that inner companion, right? When we're
Right.
continuously feeding ourselves, then we're happy in this space, and whatever happens out here, yeah, it matters, but it's just buffered a little bit.
Right. And we're evidence based creatures.
Mhm.
So the more that we can define, we know to think on things that are pure and
Yes.
lovely and noble, right? But those are very elusive concepts. So we have to really say, what is a pure thought for me?
Mhm.
What is a noble thought for me? What is a lovely thought for me? right? And you start to define them, then you can see the evidence of, is that where my mind is dwelling?
Mhm.
Is my mind focused on the things that are pure and lovely and noble? Or is my mind focused on problems that are outside of my realm that I can fix and then blaming myself for those problems existing? It's all your fault. And so
Mhm.
then am I really being this horrible mean girl to am I a Regina George to myself? Is that what's happening? Right? Or am I really gonna measure it by defining it so then I can also get that dopamine drip? Because, we've got this amazing pharmacy in our
Yes.
head.
Mhm.
When I do what I say I'm going to do, and when I am who I say that I am, I get a dopamine drip that makes me feel amazing. That's that peace and satisfaction,
Oh, I love
right?
that. Okay, when I do what I say I'm gonna do, when I am who I say who I am, I have that integrity of thought
Right.
and action and being, then I get that dopamine
I
drip.
get a dopamine
That's
drip, so I get
beautiful.
rewarded.
I get rewarded and I get the enhanced desire to persist,
Right, right,
which
because
is
that's part of
super
that fuel.
cool.
Yes.
Oh, I like that. Oh, Monica, I could do this all day. You have been such a blessing to us.
Oh, thank
Where
you.
can people find your course on mental or your, whatever it
Yeah,
is that
yeah,
you're
yeah.
doing? Where can they get more of it?
Oh, you're so sweet. Okay, so right now it's
Mhm.
monicasmith.io, and
Okay.
there is a sign up. So we're launching, you'll get the emails, you'll get some more tips, some more tools that I throw out. We're also like finishing up with a couple more survey of how people want it delivered.
Hmm.
So yes, monicasmith.io. I would love to have you guys. I'd love to hear from you because I really enjoy listening to people's stories and kind of knowing where they are and what tools that I can help them with where they are with where they are in their life. So yeah, thank you for asking, Christy,
Absolutely.
and for having me. And gosh, meeting you has been just a joy, and I love your program.
Oh,
What a
thank you
great
so
idea!
much. And we were talking about filling our minds with good stuff. So if you want 2 minutes of good stuff, join us Monday through Friday right here at One Moment Wiser on
Love it.
pretty much any social media. But Monday through Friday evenings, we are focusing on mental health this year and we are reading what God says about it. So join us for a little 2-minute devotion.
I
God
love that.
bless you all and thank you for joining us today. Thank you so much, Monica, you too. And
Ah, thank
we'll
you.
see you next time. Bye bye.